When I first got into macrame, I watched so many YouTube videos because I wanted to make a large macrame wall hanging that was easy, something that looked magnificent but wouldn't require a lot of effort to put together. And then I realized one day, why not just make something using the basics? A lark's head, square knots, and half knots, also known as spiral knots. Oh, and a lot of brushing. That's why in this video I'm going to go over the process that I used on how to create this extremely easy large macrame wall hanging. First, I started preparing the wood for my piece. This is actually from a tree that had fallen over, and I wanted to repurpose a couple of the branches and give it a new purpose and life, so I sanded it all down and sealed it up. Then I went into cutting all my rope. I used 6mm macrame cord, 10 feet lengths, because I want my piece to be around 2 to 3 feet long because I'll be hanging it in half over the branch. That means I have 5 feet to work with. And as I'm doing the pattern, that will slowly shrink to give me the 2 to 3 feet that I am wanting. I didn't really know exactly what the final piece would look like. This is kind of the direction that I want to go, and the rest just was me having a lot of fun, enjoying my time working with macrame. I'm going to start by using lark head knots to attach my rope onto my branch. Essentially what I'm doing is just putting the rope over the branch, and then through the opening I'll pull the strands through. And I'll apply that to the rest of the branch. The amount of strands that you need is really dependent on the length of your branch, but just to give you an example, I used a total of 62 strands. So 62 strands allows me to create 31 patterns, one of which will be in the center, and then 15 on one side, and then 15 on the other side. So I started this piece by working directly in the center. I am making 4 lark's head knots into one another. And so grabbing the first 4 strands, I started with a square knot. And all I'm doing for this knot is taking the left rope over the 2 center ropes, then taking the right rope, putting that over the left rope, behind it, and then through the opening. And then once I tighten everything up, pushing the knot to the very top, I'm going to repeat the pattern with the right rope over the 2 center pieces, and then taking the left rope over the right rope and behind, then through the opening, and then repeating that process over and over and over again to give me a square knot. You also want to make sure that the center rope does not rotate as you're pulling these cords tight. Always keep those straight and firm, and always pull tightly to make sure that the knot is snug up against the other knot. And I love this knot to begin with because this is the foundation of all the other knots. This one has a pattern. You start with left and then you go with right, left, right, left, right. Well, if you do left, 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 you start to get a spiral. If you do right, 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 you get another spiral, but a different direction. And so I'm going to flip my piece over so you can watch the process and how I create something that's never been created before using 3 basic macrame knots for this large macrame wall hanging that is extremely easy to make. Easy in the sense of I know what knots I'm going to use, and whatever it ends up being, this is my piece. But always remember to have fun. One thing that I really love about the creative process and working on this large macrame wall hanging is that I could do it myself. It's a DIY. I didn't want to stress about watching a video over and over and over again, trying to figure out where I went wrong, what's going right. I just wanted to have fun and make a large macrame wall hanging. I mean, I spent hours working on this piece, but to be honest, it went by so quick. I was having so much fun that I ended up changing the ropes that I was using and interweaving some of the different patterns together. And that's the cool thing about having fun with a piece like this. It's like you're challenging yourself to take a new step and just go with it. Have fun. And that's one thing that I love about the creative process. And once I got to a point where I knew this is the length that I wanted, I just started pulling apart all the strands and getting it ready to brush. And then I brushed for a while. It's like brushing your hair. You want to make sure that everything is straight, you get out all the knots, and it looks fabulous. And the more I brushed, the more I got to see exactly what the final piece would look like. Now I ended up trimming some of the strands to give it that V formation where the middle would be the longest point, and it kind of tapered off at the edges to achieve that shape that I was looking for. And I'll be honest, when I first started it, I thought, man, this is going to look odd. but I just kept telling myself, keep moving forward. And the more I worked on it, the better it got, and I was shocked on how it was turning out. And once I finally got it to a place I was happy with, then I started to fine-tune everything by super gluing the strands into place on the branch. That way there was a little bit of a division between each one. After that, I started working on the mount, which I used 4 strands that are about 2 feet long, and then I grabbed another strand and tied a knot right at the center of all those strands to make it into somewhat of a tassel. And I made actually 2 of these, which you'll see in this video. One I ended up gluing at the very top of the branch. This is what I'm going to use to mount my piece onto the wall. And so I'm going to super glue one section onto the branch and then add some more super glue and apply the other section. That way I have a circular opening at the very top. This section is going to be where I candy cane. I just use super glue to secure it in place, and then I just start wrapping the rope all the way to the very top, tightening as I go to make sure that it's extremely secure. And then once I get to the top, I'm going to just tie the end into itself and a lot more super glue. And then after that, I just snip off the ends. Since this is the back side of the piece, you won't really see it, so I'm just going to trim everything up to make it short. So for these pieces, I'm using a 1/2-inch black pipe. I have a flange, a nipple, and also a T. This piece easily weighs about 40 pounds, and so I wanted to make sure that I installed it on the wall stud. So I'm going to mark where the stud is, then drill a couple holes. And then once everything is mounted onto the wall, I'm going to grab my piece and insert the strands that I used to make a knot on the tassel. And then I'm going to grab the second tassel that I made and put that through the opening that I have for the first tassel. I've used this concept before in some of my other pieces, and the thing that I love about it is that I can easily remove my piece by just removing the tassel. And it also incorporates the mounting into the piece, which I find elevates the look of the piece. It's not just there for support, it's there to add additional character. Because when you're making a large macrame wall hanging, you want this to be a statement piece. You want it to stand out, and so you look at the piece as a whole with all the details put into it. Overall, this piece turned out better than I expected it would turn out. Not only was it easy to create this large macrame wall hanging, it just added so much character onto the wall. It's a story piece. This piece did take me a while. It took a total of 6 hours, one of which was for prepping the wood, 4 hours working on the macrame, and then 1 hour doing all the fine tuning with the super glue, cutting, and then the mounting as well. In total, I spent about $70 on macrame and also the black pipes, and then everything else I kind of already had, which made this large macrame wall hanging extremely doable. You're not gonna find this anywhere else. I mean, this is a one of a kind, and that's why I love my large macrame wall hanging. Oh yeah, and don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you enjoyed watching this. Thanks.